The sound comes first. Not the scream, but the hiss, the sound of iron kissing human flesh. Rome awakens not to birdsong, but to a brand pressed into the face of a girl who dared to run. The crowd doesn't flinch. Merchants pause their bargaining, children crane their necks to see. And in the heart of the empire that shaped our world, cruelty is not hidden in shadows, it is displayed in daylight, as if suffering itself were a form of civic theater. A young woman, no older than 17, kneels while 3 letters sear into her forehead, FVG. Fugitiva. Runaway. Her identity is no longer hers, it is rewritten into scar tissue. You were never meant to see this moment through her eyes. Because history is a mask, and the Rome you were taught to admire, the marble temples, the oratory, the legions, was built atop the silence of those who could not speak. Women especially. Property to be used, punished, and branded. Rome was not just a civilization, it was an engine of control, perfecting the art of making punishment itself into propaganda. The lesson was clear: if you run, your face will carry your crime forever. Your body becomes the billboard of your disobedience. But here is the darker truth. The punishment was not only about the runaway herself, it was about everyone watching. The iron did more than burn flesh. It burned fear into the minds of those who thought about running. It forged an invisible chain, stronger than any shackle. Control, at its highest form, is not physical, it is psychological. It convinces you to cage yourself before you even try the gate. Rome understood this better than any empire before it, and perhaps any empire since. Ask yourself, why do we never learn this in school? Why are we taught to marvel at Roman aqueducts, Roman roads, Roman law, but not this? Because power knows how to curate its own memory. History is written not by the victors, but by the architects of perception. And perception, my friend, is the greatest prison of all. What you're hearing now is dangerous knowledge. The kind that makes a man unfit to be a passive citizen. Because once you see how Rome enslaved women not just with chains, but with symbols, scars, and spectacle, you begin to see how control has always operated. You begin to see how it still operates. This was not punishment. This was programming. And you were never supposed to know. The auction block was the first ritual of erasure. Imagine the wooden platform in Rome's slave market, a stage where women's lives were dismantled piece by piece under the guise of commerce. Her wrists bound, her chin forced high, her tunic ripped open, not for shame, but for inspection. Teeth checked like livestock, muscles prodded for labor, hips appraised for breeding. Every bid was a nail sealing her into someone else's will. 20 denarii. 30. 35. And with the final strike of the auctioneer's gavel, her humanity was reduced to a ledger entry. But here's the hidden machinery: Rome didn't simply buy bodies. It bought submission. It engineered a system so precise that even rebellion became part of its design. For every woman who ran, there was already a protocol, a performance, a punishment waiting. Every escape attempt was not a threat to Rome, it was an opportunity. An opportunity to remind the thousands still in chains that freedom was worse than captivity. They didn't just want obedience. They wanted despair. In the merchant's household, the newly purchased girl learned quickly. She was not just expected to serve wine, clean dishes, and labor in fields. She was expected to obey without the possibility of refusal. To resist was to vanish into the machinery of correction. Other enslaved women carried the proof of what happens when you don't comply: strange scars hidden beneath hairlines, burns beneath collars, wounds they never spoke of but always carried. Silent warnings etched into their flesh. This is where Rome's genius reveals itself. Power doesn't only punish the body, it colonizes the imagination. The girl began mapping escape routes with her eyes, memorizing alleys, rehearsing freedom in her mind. But Rome anticipated this. The city itself was a trap disguised as liberty. Guards patrolled every possible escape corridor. Ports were watched. Highways became nets. The state studied not just where slaves ran, but how they thought. And so, when she fled in the pre-dawn stillness, for 20 fleeting minutes she tasted freedom. The cold air filled her lungs, her feet carried her toward the dream of escape. But that dream was already intercepted. Patrols lay in wait like predators, not by accident but by design. She was seized before sunrise, shackled, and returned. Not to prison. Not yet. But to the stage. Because her punishment had to be seen, had to be remembered, had to become myth in the minds of those still considering flight. Rome didn't need to cage every woman. It only needed to make every woman believe the cage was eternal. Beneath the Roman Forum, there was a chamber few dared to look into. A holding cell, carved into stone, where fugitives waited before their punishment. The girl sat among them now, her wrists swollen from shackles, her body bruised but unbroken. Around her were others who had tried to run, men with fresh wounds still bleeding, women with hollow eyes that no longer believed in escape. This was Rome's true courtroom. Not the marble halls of senators, but the underground silence where hope rotted before the branding iron touched skin. The magistrate above never saw them as people. He shuffled scrolls with the same detachment as a merchant measuring grain. In the 12 tables, Rome's foundational law, escape was defined not as a quest for freedom, but as theft. A slave who ran had stolen themselves from their rightful owner. Think about the corruption embedded in that language. To Rome, your very existence was not yours to claim. You were property. To flee was not resistance. It was larceny. And so, the girl's crime was already decided. She had stolen her own body, her own breath, her own destiny. But because she was young, because she was strong, because her body still had value to exploit, she was not sentenced to death. Not yet. Death was too merciful. Instead, she would be returned, but branded first, marked for life, a permanent inscription declaring her crime to anyone who looked upon her. Her body became the parchment, the iron her author. This is the part of history they never want you to connect. Punishment in Rome was theater. Public, ritualized, and staged to send a message. When the girl was dragged into the forum at dawn, the crowd did not avert their eyes, they leaned forward. Pain was entertainment. Suffering was pedagogy. Every scream was a sermon on obedience. And the branding iron was not just punishment, it was prophecy. It foretold the empire's unshakable control. Do you see it yet? Rome wasn't punishing her. Rome was programming everyone else. The iron hissed, the flesh burned, and a whole city absorbed the lesson: you are not your own. The cage is eternal. The scar is your scripture. This is where men today fail to see the mirror. You believe the whip and the iron are relics of the past, but look closer. Modern control doesn't sear letters into your skin, it brands your mind. It teaches you to wear invisible scars, to censor your own rebellion before it begins. And just like Rome, the system smiles as you cage yourself. The night before her branding, the girl was left in darkness. No chains on her ankles, no whip at her back, just silence, broken by the sound of iron heating in the forge above. The hiss and clank echoed through the stone like whispers from the underworld. This was part of the punishment. They made her wait, made her listen, made her imagine the iron pressed against her skin. Anticipation itself became torture, and by dawn, her spirit was already being carved before the blade touched her. Understand this, Rome's cruelty was not random. It was engineered. They knew the human mind breaks long before the body. That fear is more efficient than force. By branding her at sunrise, in full view of the marketplace, they were not only inscribing her flesh, they were inscribing the collective memory of every onlooker. The children perched on their fathers' shoulders, the merchants clutching scales, the soldiers watching with arms crossed, all became disciples of Rome's lesson. Freedom is forbidden. Obedience is eternal. But here is the truth that will disturb you: the iron branding of Rome never ended. It only changed its form. Today, you are not burned with glowing letters. Instead, invisible marks are etched into your identity through systems, through institutions, through the quiet manipulations of culture itself. You are told who you are, what you can be, and how far you may run. The scars are not on your face anymore, they are in your mind. And most men never realize they've been branded until it's too late. If you are still here, listening, you already feel the weight of this revelation pressing down. But I am not here to cage you, I am here to unmask the cage. And to do that, you must take the first step into transformation. Declare it, not for me, but for yourself. Write it in the comments now, twice, as a seal of identity: no cage can hold me. Because unlike Rome, your scars do not have to define you. Unlike Rome, the brand does not have to own you. But only if you awaken to the game that was designed before you were born. Only if you refuse to carry their invisible mark. The girl in Rome had no choice. You do. The question is, will you take it? Or will you continue to kneel at the empire's feet? The empire's brilliance was never in its armies or its marble. Rome's true genius was in something colder: the science of obedience. Look closely and you'll see it, an architecture of control that outlived its own ruins. The branding iron was only the surface. Beneath it lay the deeper program: make people police themselves. Think about it. Once a woman was branded, she carried Rome's mark everywhere. She didn't need guards watching her every moment, the scar did the work. It told strangers she was a fugitive, warned others she was dangerous, reminded her daily of her failure. Rome turned her body into its own surveillance system. A moving warning sign. A human deterrent. That is efficiency in its purest form. Now ask yourself, do you really think this system died 2,000 years ago? No. It adapted. It evolved. The scar became paperwork. The iron became data. The forum became the media. Today, men are branded not with glowing letters but with invisible categories: criminal record, credit score, social status, even the algorithms that dictate what you see and what you don't. Each mark shapes how the world perceives you, and worse, how you perceive yourself. You believe you are free, but your every step is already predicted, measured, and corrected. Just like in Rome. The girl in the forum was dragged into daylight so that others would learn obedience through terror. Today, obedience is taught more quietly. Through humiliation. Through silence. Through exile from opportunity. And the cruelest part? You enforce it yourself. You censor your thoughts. You limit your dreams. You build your own prison because you fear the consequences of stepping outside their invisible lines. Rome is not gone, it simply shed its armor and put on a suit. It traded branding irons for institutions, magistrates for bureaucrats, whips for psychological chains. And just like in the ancient forum, the crowd still watches. The spectacle of punishment is alive in every headline, every viral scandal, every man destroyed publicly to remind the rest, stay in line, or this will be you. The girl's scream once echoed through the stones of Rome. Today, it echoes through your own life in silence, in hesitation, in the quiet moments where you know what you want, but you don't move, because something unseen stops you. That is the brand. That is the cage. And if you think you are safe, it means you've already been marked. What Rome feared most was not rebellion. It was awakening. A woman who ran could be recaptured. A man who resisted could be broken. But an awakened slave, a mind that refused the empire's script, that was the true threat. Because once a person sees the cage for what it is, the bars lose their power. Rome understood this, and so does every system that inherited its blueprint. That is why punishment was never about pain alone. It was about killing the seed of awakening before it could take root. The branding iron wasn't just a mark, it was a curse. It whispered to the woman each time she looked at her reflection, "You are nothing but property. You will never be free." Rome didn't just mark her face, it tried to brand her identity. And here is the revelation most men today miss: the same curse is alive now, hidden in plain sight. You've been told what you are from birth. Told your limits. Told your worth. Told what you can and cannot do. They brand you not with iron, but with narratives, stories that shrink you into something manageable, predictable, controllable. Stories that make you trade your fire for silence, your strength for obedience, your power for comfort. The mark is invisible, but it works the same. It convinces you that your potential is already decided. That you are smaller than you truly are. Look around. Every empire since Rome has studied the same formula: break the body if you must, but always break the will. Keep men busy chasing bread and spectacle, drowning in distractions, terrified of stepping out of line. Teach them to laugh at truth, mock power, ridicule freedom, so that the few who awaken are isolated, marked as dangerous, branded as fugitives of the system. This is the secret they never want you to hold: your power is not in chains. Your power is in perception. If they can make you believe you are weak, then you will live weak. If they can make you accept your brand, then you will kneel forever. Rome's victims carried their scars until death. But your scars are not flesh. They are beliefs. They can be burned out, rewritten, erased. But only if you choose to see them. Only if you have the courage to confront the cage for what it truly is: an illusion carefully maintained, a prison built in your own mind. The question is, will you awaken? Or will you remain asleep, branded without ever realizing it? Picture the girl one last time, her forehead still smoking, her body trembling as the guards dragged her through the crowd. She was alive, but something had been stolen from her. Not her freedom alone, but her very image of herself. That was the true punishment, not the iron, not the pain, but the story etched into her flesh that she was property, that she was powerless, that she would never escape. Rome wrote her destiny in scars. And every man, woman, and child who watched believed the message was for them. But here is what the empire could never calculate: scars can be read two ways. To the crowd, the mark was fear. To the awakened, it was proof. Proof that Rome feared freedom so much it had to mutilate it. Proof that power trembles at the thought of a runaway. And that is the message you must carry now. If they brand you, if they mock you, if they silence you, it is not because you are weak. It is because you are dangerous. Look at the world you live in. Bread and circus. Distraction and humiliation. Invisible brands etched into your mind: worker, debtor, consumer, criminal, failure. The cage is not made of stone. It is made of stories. Stories designed to make you kneel, to make you believe you were born small, that you cannot change, that you must accept the empire's script. That was Rome's genius. That is still the blueprint today. But listen carefully. Once you see the brand for what it is, it loses its power. Once you strip away the lie, the scar becomes a weapon. You stop living as property and start living as force. That is why they fear awakening more than rebellion, because an awakened man is no longer programmable. He is no longer useful to their system of obedience. So I leave you with this: you are branded, yes, but not by fire. You are branded by belief. Tear it off. Reject it. Burn away the false identity and carve your own. You are not the cage. You are not the scar. You are the force that makes empires tremble. Rome is dust. Its rulers are forgotten. But the iron still glows in the world today, waiting for the next runaway. The question is, will you kneel and accept the mark, or will you walk into the fire and come out unmarked, unstoppable, untouchable? The choice is yours. And once you choose, you are no longer asleep.